you speak about these non-human intelligence, various 5 specifically,
Yes.
with very much conviction. Is there a degree of some sort of galactic federation? Sorry, a car alarm was just going off. But
Right.
do you know if there's any coordination between these 5 races, and that is one is dominant and yada yada yada? Because I
Well,
think you talk about
well,
this.
it's an extremely interesting question. I know, Ty, that based upon some of my direct face-to-face interviews with people who I find to be extraordinarily credible, and that I would be convinced that if I were to present them in front of a jury, which is what I do, and have done over the last 50 years. I've done trials in 23 different states, in dealing with other dimensions of legal issues, all the way from the Wounded Knee occupation to, Iran-Contra and Karen Sokol case and others that people know about. And I know that if I select witnesses whom I'm convinced, if I place them in front of a jury and subjected them to direct examination and exposed them to any thoroughgoing cross-examination that anyone might be able to mount against them, that they would convince a jury that they were telling the truth, and that they have given me accounts of, for example, Barbara Lamb, who is an extraordinarily credible person, a woman who's like just now 90 years old,
Right.
who has been interviewing people who have hold sincere beliefs that they've had encounters, face-to-face encounters with UFOs and the occupants, and have described them to her in some detail. And she actually recounted to me that we are now in possession of audio recordings of her interviews of these people. She has now left these with us at the New Paradigm Institute so that we can protect these things for the future. So we've been able to hear the detailed descriptions of people of having face-to-face encounters with the beings. And Barbara Lamb herself has told me the story that she was, after years and years of interviewing all these people, she had never actually had a direct encounter with the UFO or any extraterrestrial beings, and so that she was kind of longing to get to have such an experience. And one afternoon, she came into her house, her apartment, from being out in the garden, and here was a UFO person standing right in the middle of her living room. It was a reptilian, over 6 feet tall, almost 7 feet tall. Extraordinarily benign, very, very friendly, and positive being, just telepathically communicated to her. Look, you had always wanted to confirm that we were real, and so we wanted to make sure that you were affirmed in your knowledge of it. And she sat right there and told me the story, and described the being. And it wasn't any question. This wasn't a person. This wasn't a human being. This was a humanoid reptilian, almost between 6 and 7 feet tall, totally benign. And she described the being to me. And I had another interview with a fellow who was on his deathbed, Albert Stein, his name was. He was a clerk typist for Project Blue Book for decades. And he ended up actually going with his commander of Project Blue Book, the top secret portion of Project Blue Book, to S4, and was actually present during an interview of a live ET. And this was again, between 5.5 feet tall. They had him in a blue, like a jumpsuit.
So they're obviously recording this.
Well, this what I was saying is that it was in addition to this one particular interview that they had index cards with notes being taken of interviews, a series of interviews with this being, and had notes that were being taken. And so all I've said is that in light of the fact that they're clearly doing interviews of this being at S4, it's completely unimaginable that they wouldn't have recorded them, right. And filmed some of these. Now, the particular, there's a couple of different videos that have been running around of people saying, here's a live interview of these. I have not yet confirmed that those are real, but I do know from my interview of Albert that I find him to be extraordinarily credible. He was on his deathbed, literally. He called me and wanted to convey this information to me before he died. And he described this is a tall, bald, large head, with large eyes, the classic tall gray.
Gray.
So we know that those are two firsthand accounts that I have. And I say, and I've interviewed many people as legal counsel for the Project for Extraordinary Experience Research. Have given detailed descriptions. For example, one of the other people, Melinda Leslie, who had
I know her. She's been on the show. Yeah.
Encounter with one of what they call insectoids. The mantis people. Were like almost 7 feet tall, very, very tall, very, very skinny, very thin, and that they remind people almost of like a praying mantis. That this is a third type. And then there are, of course, myriad stories from very credible people about the little tiny, short, 3.5 feet tall grays. That they look just like the tall grays.
Terry Lovelace,
same eyes, etc. So that you have the short grays, the tall grays, you have the reptilians, and you have the mantis people. Now, and then there's this whole array of stories, Billy Meyer being one of the major promoters of these, but there's lots of other people who've given these accounts of encountering beings that look just like us. And they consistently report these beings having come from the Pleiades, the constellation of the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades. They come from one of the star systems there. And all I'm saying is that one is so, if you can imagine, it's harder to believe.
Isn't it?
Others,
right?
Because that means that these are like humans. These are like human beings. They look just exactly like us, except that they have larger earlobes apparently and other things. But this is a fifth particular species, which is not a non-human species, but these others are non-human. So that we have detailed accounts of these, and that what we're doing at the New Paradigm Institute is investigating all of this, trying to figure out, how to establish the information so that regular people who are just coming into contact with this whole field can have credible information and knowledge about these things.